Public records are supposed to expose corruption, not come with a price tag so outrageous it scares the public away. But in Hubbard, Texas, the minute I started asking questions, the resistance started. And once I pulled on one thread, Lake One, B&L Construction, WR Utilities, Gnarly Investments, and missing conflict disclosures, the whole thing started to unravel.
Tyranny, corruption, extortion.
Sunlight is the best disinfectant.
BZ Watchdog News Network.
This story started the way a lot of government scandals start, with public records. Back in December of 25, I started requesting records about things I was seeing in Hubbard, Texas. Instead of transparency, I got resistance. Instead of cooperation, I got what looked like an outrageous cost estimate. So I filed an attorney general complaint. Because when public officials start making records hard to get, expensive to get, or delayed on purpose, that usually means one thing. They do not want the public looking too closely. And the more I looked into Hubbard, the more one name kept showing up. Jason Patrick. But before we get deeper into Jason Patrick, we need to talk about the deal that really blew the lid off this entire mess. The Lake One land deal. Because this is the deal that opened Pandora's box. Let's start with the paper trail. The city of Hubbard published a notice of possible sale of land for approximately 80 acres on State Highway 31, described as Lake One. The notice says the property was to be sold for the purpose of building upscale residential homes and an RV park, while maintaining the scenic view of the lake. And the city made one thing very clear. All bids had to be submitted in a sealed envelope and received by 3 p.m. on November 13th, 24. So remember that date, November 13th, 2024. That is the public bid deadline. Now here's where things start getting strange. There is a proposal dated October 11th, 2024, submitted from B&L Construction to the City Council of Hubbard. That proposal says B&L wants to buy Lake One and develop it into a high-end residential community with 8 to 12 residential lots and a luxury RV park. So far, that is straightforward. But then you get to the bottom of the proposal, and suddenly it stops looking so straightforward. Because the proposal says to contact them at Cody@WRUtilities.com. Let that sink in. A proposal supposedly made on behalf of B&L Construction is being routed through a WR Utilities email address, and the proposal is signed by Cody Weatherby and Bradley Johnson. So now the public has every right to ask, why is a B&L Construction proposal being handled through WR Utilities? What authority did Cody Weatherby have to act for B&L? Was he a representative, partner, contractor, or just using another company's banner to approach the city? Because from the outside, that does not look clean. That looks like overlapping players, overlapping businesses, and overlapping interests. Now here's the part that really ought to have every taxpayer in Hubbard paying attention. The B&L proposal says they are offering $1 million for the property, but that offer is not clean and simple. Because the proposal also says the offer is contingent on a contract with the city to pay $300,000 to B&L Construction so the property can gain water and sewer access from the Hubbard city system. So let me translate that into plain English. The city-owned property gets sold, and built into the proposal is language saying the city would pay $300,000 back to the buyer side for utility access. That is the kind of clause that should have triggered intense public scrutiny, clear documentation, and conflict disclosures. Instead, what we got was a paper trail that raises even more questions. Now let's move to what happened after the bid process. A later contract dated 2/5 of 25 shows the city of Hubbard as seller and Gnarly Investments as the buyer, not B&L Construction. Gnarly Investments. The contract shows $250,000 cash, $750,000 third-party financing. Total sale price of $1 million. So now the obvious question becomes, how did a proposal submitted on behalf of B&L Construction through Cody Weatherby using a WR Utilities email turn into a sale contract with Gnarly Investments? Who changed the vehicle? When did that happen? Who approved it? And where is the clean paper trail explaining it? Because if the same people are moving through multiple company names in the same transaction, the public deserves answers. Now let's talk about who was behind Gnarly Investments. The records I reviewed show Gnarly Investments LLC with a filing date of November 14th, 2024. That matters because the city's sealed bid deadline was November 13th, 2024. And the ownership information I reviewed lists Brian Kevin Robinson, John Cody Weatherby, John Jarvis Murphy. Same circle, same names, same orbit. Now compare that to WR Utilities. The WR Utilities ownership screenshot shows Brian K. Robinson, John C. Weatherby. So now you have overlapping names between the utility company and the entity that ended up buying the city property. And one of the people involved in the earlier B&L proposal, Cody Weatherby, is also showing up here. This is not a tiny detail. That is a giant one. And this is where the city of Hubbard's own response becomes devastating. I submitted a records request asking for conflict of interest affidavits, disclosures, family relationship disclosures, vendor/contractor conflict disclosures, amendments, updates, and logs. The city secretary's response says, no records available for appointed officials and board members, no records available for department heads and supervisors, no records available for employees involved in purchasing, procurement, contracting, grant administration, permitting, inspections, enforcement, code compliance, or hiring. No records available for vendor/contractor related conflict disclosures. No records available for family relationship disclosures. No records available for gifts or nepotism related disclosures. No records available for amendments or logs. No records available. That is the city's answer. So in a deal involving public land, overlapping business players, and people tied into multiple corners of town government and contracting, the official line is, we do not have the conflict paperwork. That is not comforting. That is alarming. Now let's step back and remember the bigger backdrop here. Chrissa Spigener was indicted in Hill County for theft of property between $150,000 and $300,000 by a public servant. The indictment states the alleged theft period ran from January 1 of 2019 through March 31 of 2024 and identifies the city of Hubbard as the owner. Then the judgment shows a guilty plea and restitution payable to the city of Hubbard in the amount of $235,501.46. That matters because it confirms something huge. For years, money was being stolen from the city of Hubbard. And while all that was happening, this city was also dealing with weak controls, land deals, contractor overlap, and conflict paperwork that now appears to be missing or non-existent. So the question becomes, how many warning signs did people ignore? How many people knew there were internal weaknesses? And who benefited from a town government where accountability was clearly not the priority? So here are the questions the public should be demanding answers to right now. Why was a B&L Construction proposal handled through a WR Utilities email? What exactly was Cody Weatherby's authority to act on behalf of B&L? How did the process move from B&L Construction to Gnarly Investments? Why do the same names overlap between WR Utilities and Gnarly Investments? Why are there apparently no conflict of interest disclosures on file? Where is the documentation on the promised infrastructure? Where is the documentation on what was actually built? Where are the homes? Where is the RV development? And if the deal included city-paid utility access or infrastructure obligations, where is the proof the public got what it was promised? Because that is the pattern here. Overlapping names, shifting entities, missing disclosures, and public officials who seem to get real uncomfortable the moment somebody starts asking for records. This is why records matter. This is why people need to go to city council meetings. This is why people need to record. This is why people need to stop taking government at its word when the paperwork does not line up. And this is exactly why outrageous records estimates are so dangerous. Because if the public cannot afford to see the truth, corruption gets to hide in plain sight. This is not the end of the Jason Patrick story. This is just the beginning. Because once you start pulling on the Hubbard thread, the entire sweater starts coming apart. And if the people in charge think inflated records cost, silence, and missing paperwork are going to make me back down, they have not been paying attention. I will keep digging. I will keep pulling records. And I will keep putting the receipts in front of the public. Because sunlight is the best and only disinfectant. And in Hubbard, Texas, there's a whole lot that needs disinfecting. Hubbard residents, start showing up. Start recording. Start asking questions. Because the people running your town are counting on your silence. I'm BZ Watchdog. Sunlight is still and will always be the best disinfectant. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Share this across all your social media platforms. Because I'm not going to let this go.
Tyranny, corruption, extortion.
Sunlight is the best disinfectant.
BZ Watchdog News Network.
BZ Watchdog.